Okay, well, today we're really pleased to have Thomas Friedman at Royal Institute Elcano. No need to introduce him, just to mention that he's a world-renowned journalist, author, and the winner of the Pulitzer Prize 3 times. The question would be, when is the 4th time coming?
God willing.
Anyone who looks at the international scene can see easily that there's an increasing sense of disorder. You've written and reflected on the transformation of a world of order into a world of disorder. How do you see those things and the price of keeping an imposed order in the world?
Well, Haizam, I really do believe that the big divide in the world today is no longer east-west, north-south, communist-capitalist or socialist-capitalist. It's really between states of order and states of disorder. The states of disorder, we see them in the news every morning. Iraq, Syria, Somalia, South Sudan, now Libya, the list grows. And at the same time, the world of order. The world of order is divided up, I would argue, into 2 basic camps. Countries with a sustainable order based on values and institutions, and then countries based on imposed order from the top down. That would be like Russia or like China. And both provide order. But imposed order is getting more and more expensive. The number of people you have to arrest or kill, or the number of rights you have to deny to maintain imposed order in a world where individuals now are so much more empowered, is going up every day.
If we look at the Middle East and that world of disorder that you are mentioning, there are no longer states in Syria and Iraq as there used to be, and there's a growing threat of different ideologies that are trying to impose an exclusionist vision of how to govern these countries and societies. We know that the US has had a very special relationship with Saudi Arabia for decades, for obvious reasons. Do you see there could be a change in the relationship between the US and Saudi Arabia, and how would that affect the international economy and Europe, obviously?
Yeah. Well, I don't think we're going to stop buying their oil, or Europe's going to stop buying Saudi oil, but I think there's a growing awareness that in the fight with the Islamic State that's emerged in Syria and Iraq, this reactionary, Salafist, puritanical, lunatic, really, movement, that one can't understand the emergence of this movement without understanding that Saudi Arabia, over the last 30 years, has had a ruling bargain where the Al Saud family gets to rule and live however they want behind walls. And in return, they fund the religious establishment to fund mosques and schools all around the Muslim world with this Salafist Wahhabi ideology. And so to some degree, Saudi Arabia is funding both sides of this war. It's on the one hand, you have over 1,000 young Saudis fighting with different jihadist militias in Syria and Iraq, some no doubt with ISIS. And at the same time, you have Saudi money going to develop an interpretation of Islam that is deeply hostile to pluralism. By the way, not just pluralism of other faiths, but pluralism even within Islam, whether it's Sufism or Shiism, etc. And I think it's very unhealthy for Saudi Arabia. It's going to threaten Saudi Arabia, unhealthy for young Saudis. There are many who want to take their place in the modern world, and unhealthy for the West, and it's got to stop.
You talk about the need for pluralistic societies to have pluralism within them and the ruling systems. Who should the allies of the democratic world be in this region? And is it just through bombing?
Yeah.
Some groups that pluralism could be achieved, or what do you think?
Well, yeah, again, I mean, obviously you want to stop ISIS's expansion. In that sense, somebody stopping them militarily, whether by the air, ground, is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Because who's going to govern is the ultimate question once you've stopped them. And how is that person going to govern? With imposed order from the top down, that may be necessary for a while, I hope not, but that may be necessary. Or with sustainable order based on shared values. And the first shared value that is the necessary sine qua non for any kind of hope for governance in that space is no victor, no vanquished. A respect for each one's difference. We get back down to pluralism. And that nobody's going to wipe out anybody. Shia are not going to wipe out Sunni, Sunni are not going to wipe out Shia. They've got to find a way to live together horizontally as equal citizens, not vertically under an iron fist.
You've worked a lot in the Middle East. You followed very closely the so-called Arab Awakening.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about the Tunisian experience and what's happening in that country?
Well, the reason that Tunisia has worked and Kurdistan has worked, it's not an Arab country, but it was part of an Arab country, is because they basically eventually, often the hard way, after a lot of internal strife and even killing, came to the principle of no victor, no vanquished. In the case of Tunisia, it's secular and religious, saying we're going to create space for each. In Kurdistan, it was different rival tribes and families, but ultimately, without a principle of no victor, no vanquished, there'll be no stability in any of these other Arab countries.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Thomas Friedman, and to all our viewers, we highly encourage you, if you don't already, to follow Tom's columns at New York Times twice weekly. Thank you.